Page 22, Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Let's talk about a few things here. I'm going to start with the right hand. I just want to point out a few tricky little thingies and then a couple fingering changes that I recommend. This is page 22, second line, first measure. In the right hand, you got to watch out for the rhythm here. The rhythm will get you. For instance, take a look at the first measure. You have it's a 4/4 time. I'm going to count it really slow. So we have a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it's tricky. You got a lot of tied notes. You got to 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a lot of stuff like that. Now, one thing you can try, and I haven't explained this before, I should have, I suppose, is when you're working out tricky little rhythms and you've got tied notes stuck in there, temporarily take out the ties and just play all the notes exactly as they are. So if I play the first measure without the tie, it's this. Right? I'll put the tie back in. And that might help it. I do that sometimes when it's really tricky. On measure 5, it's a different rhythm, so watch out. So you have eighth notes on the last beat. That's different. Isn't that fun? On measure 6, following measure, on that half note, they're saying put a little finger on it. I disagree, because you have an F coming up in the next measure, right? I don't want to have to move the hand again like that. That's not necessary. I recommend a fourth finger on that E. Now you use the fourth finger on the C, but that's okay, because as you do the G, you can move up to play the fourth finger. Now you're ready for the F on the next measure. I recommend that little fingering change. Measure 13. See, they have measure numbers at the beginning of each line. They'll number with a box around it, so I'm just going to use measure numbers. It's easier for me, and I'm lazy and I like easy. Okay, measure 13, right hand. You have that tricky rhythm again. This is different than the rhythm in the others, all right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Again, take out the ties if you have to. And that's the way it is. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. Put the tie in. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. At the top of page 23 on measure 18, right hand, you have a little finger on the high G. But it's a fourth finger on the E, and that's an important change, so please do that. I know you could get there with the third finger. Don't. Use the fourth finger. It's a much more solid fingering style, and you'll just get used to the, if you have an interval of a third, get used to using the 5 and 4 fingers, okay? A third or less. If it's more than a third, well, you can go there, but if it's more than that, then you can do a third finger. Measure 22, going into measure 23 in the right hand, that D, well, starting with the beginning of that measure, on measure 22, you have an F, half note, E, D. That D is tied. It's got a little tie going out to nothing. I'm not talking about the slur line. The slur line's above. Yeah, the slur line's going to nothing too, because it's the same phrase. I'm talking about the little curved line. That's a tie to the D on measure 23. So you don't play the D on measure 23 again. You just hold the other D down. So for a total of 7 counts, right? Because you got 1 quarter note and 4 for the whole note and 2 more for a half note. Get out the calculator if you have to. Here we go again. Now on measure 26, right hand, you have a fourth finger on the C, and you can use the thumb on the 2 G's, that's fine. I recommend, because they're two repeated notes, I recommend a 2-1 on the G's. So it's here, 2. If you can, I would suggest you do that. On measure 28, you have the C's, the eighth notes. That's fine if that's how you want to do it. I recommend a 2-3 on the two C's. On that, I would prefer that. That's how I'm going to do it. Now on measures 29 and 30, look at the right hand. You have 1-5, go down one note, 1-5, go down another note, 1-4. Now try and do that without looking at the keys. And again, the note between measure 30 and 31 is tight. That D, you only play it once and you hold it down for what, 7 or 8 counts, however long that is. Measure 33, you're starting out with the 5th finger, with the 3rd finger on the E. Then on the following measure, it's back to the G. Now it's the 4th finger on the E. Reason is because the 4th finger sets up the notes coming up. Right? So do it that way. Going on to page 24, on measure 42, you have a C and 2 quarter notes. It's like we did this before already. I recommend the fingering of a 2-1 on the quarter notes. Here, 2. But do that, I recommend it. Measure 44, 2 eighth notes, it's saying a 2. Fine if that's how you want to do it, but I recommend a 2-3, 2. 2-3 on the eighth notes, and then a 2 on the A, because that sets you up for the G. So you don't have, they're doing it, then you have to use the thumb again. I don't like that. If I can help it, I don't do that. So it's 2, 3, 2. Of course I have to use the thumb again anyway. And we have that same pattern. Now, measure 47 going into 48, right hand, that chord. You have a big line above them for the phrase, all right? Telling you it's a phrase. Then you have a little line above the C. You do not have a little line above the A and the F. It's just the C. So you only tie the C. You don't tie the A and the F. Of course, they're changing to an E and a G. So on measure 47, you play the chord. And when you go to 48, you got to hold the C down and play the 2 bottom notes, the E and the G. Don't play the C again, okay? It's an important distinction. Then on measure 50, you have the 4th note on the C. And again, the 2 quarter notes. You can do thumb on both if you want. I recommend a 2-1 on those quarter notes, so we don't have to repeat it. And again, on measure 52, it's a 2-3-2. So we're in position for the thumb on the G. Now, take a look at measure 55 and 56. Right hand, you have that chord again, like we had before. This time, the little curved little lines are connecting all 3 notes. Each note gets its own curved line. It means you tie them all. If a curved line was missing, you'd have to play that note again. Then the last 2 measures, that is tied, so you're going to hold that down for 8 plus 4 would be 12. 12 because a whole note gets 4 counts. There's 2 whole notes is 8, and then there's a fermata. And when I'm playing with a metronome, I just double it. That's the right hand. Let's talk about the left hand. Start with measure 9. you have a fifth finger on the F. And the reason I point this out is because this is the same pattern you have at the very beginning, the first line. But at the beginning, they're telling you to start with your fourth finger on F. See the difference? The reason they do it at the beginning is so you're ready for the E in the second measure. Well, on measure 9, it doesn't work out quite so well because you're here. On measure 8, you're here. You're already using fourth finger, so you use fifth finger on the F. But then in measure 10, go ahead and use fifth finger again. That's fine, it's not a problem. Because in the following measure, you go back to the fourth. So measure 12, you have the E, and now you have 2 quarter notes. And they're showing you the fourth finger on the G. Because in this position, the third finger's there. That's to get you in position for what's coming. Fifth finger on the F. Measure 14, 3-1, 4-1, and 5-2. I've been trying to figure out a different fingering and it hasn't worked, so I'm just going to go with their fingering. It's a little awkward here on measure 22. Left hand, you have the 5-3 for the FA. You also have a 5-3 for the F sharp A. Got to move your hand up a little bit because the little finger's shorter than the others. Don't move your hand into the black key area any further than you have to. That's an awkward fingering. Sometimes piano playing is a little awkward. So measure 24. You're here. 4-2 for the half note. And then they're saying use the thumb on the B. That puts you in position for what's coming. Then on page 24, at the bottom, measure 55, left hand, you have a 3-1 for the AC. And just like you've been doing in the past, then you do 4-1 for the G, C, 5-1 for the FC, and 5-4. And the little finger on the C, and then move your hand down. It's this C, but it's an 8VA, so you got to go an octave lower. It's down here for the last note. Now let's talk about pedal, just in case you don't have enough to think about. This has got smooth pedal all over. I recommend an overlapping style, except between the phrasing. I like to hear the phrasing. I like to hear a little bit of silence between the phrases. So at the beginning of this piece, we start with the smooth or connected legato pedaling. I still prefer overlapping. So you're going to play the first couple beats. You can play the first note and then push the pedal down. You could push the pedal down with the note. I still recommend pushing it down slightly after. And then right after you play the C in the left hand, you're going to put the pedal up and right back down and do it after the C, immediately after the C. And you'll have to work out this pedaling. Most of the time it's every 2 beats. Alright, but you can work that out. Between measures 2 and 3, you have a split in the phrasing. I don't recommend overlapping pedaling there. I would prefer to have a little silence between them. So if I play the first line, it's more or less like that. See, there's just a little bit of silence between each phrase, because otherwise it's all going to be one phrase. It's all going to be connected. Ugh. Now, you're wondering what's going on, because in some pieces you can't put a silence between the phrases. And the idea is, even if you can't, you still play it as though you could. You play it as though there's a phrase. Your technique you use, there's a slight lift in the hands between phrases. You know, you're disconnecting it with the fingers, even though the pedal may not disconnect it. you're still disconnecting it with the fingers as though there would be silence. So do this it's a mental thing. Just do it. So watch the pedaling on this. It's pedaling almost all the time except when you get like measure 8 and those type of thing. You're only holding it down for 2 counts. So when you play the C in the left hand, you lift the pedal up, right? So it's there. And then we wanted some silence before we go on. Well, that's easy because the pedal's not down now. Now we can have that with the fingers produce the silence, which they would do anyway. When you're learning this piece, do it without pedal. No pedal at all. Just learn it just the way it is and play legato. Make the fingers connect where needed. Separate the phrases as needed. And when you have that down, you go back and try and work out the pedaling. Because the pedaling just adds another layer of complexity to it, as if you don't have enough already. At the end of this piece, on page 24, you have an RIT, retard, slow down. I'm going to ignore that one with a metronome. And then the very last those last two measures, you have here the pedaling. Hold the pedal down. Let it all ring out. Glorious, wonderful, yay, isn't this great? And then the fingers and the pedal all come up at the same time. And you have sudden silence. Now there is a technique you can use in piano. It's a little more advanced. It depends on the piano and how good of a piano you've got. You have to experiment with it. I don't know how well it works with electronic keyboards. And that is when you're at the end of a piece, especially a piece is where you're soft to begin with and the sound is just kind of dying away. All right, you can slowly lift the pedal up with the feet. Just slowly lift it up, not all of a sudden, because if you do all of a sudden, the sound just stops. Now if it's a big loud thing like that, yeah, let the sound stop. It's not. But if it's a delicate little thing, just a real, and it's dying away anyway, lift the pedal up ever so slowly and the hands ever so slowly, and the sound will continue to die away to nothing. It won't just stop. And it's a huge difference. The audience or whoever's listening to you won't understand what you did, but they'll sure enjoy the sound. So it's if you have a lousy piano or something not regulated right, you'll get a buzz in it. And that doesn't work. If that's going to happen, you can't do it. Well, I've rambled on and on and on. Let's try this out together. It's in 4/4 time, and I'm going to go real slow. It's a slow piece anyway, but I'm going to go slower than that. So you can play along with me, and you have time to hear the notes. I need you to hear the notes. That's what's important, okay? So I'm going to play this without pedal, because I want you to hear the notes better without pedal. And it wouldn't be a bad idea when you play with me for you to play without pedal. You can add the pedal later. And yes, in case I didn't tell you, when we get to the bottom of page 23, we're going to stop. We're going to turn the page. I'm going to count you in, starting at the top of page 24. When you're performing it or playing it, you've got to get that page turned in without messing up the flow of the music. Or you got to memorize it. It's up to you, whatever. But for this, we're not performing it. This is an exercise so we can play, get the rhythms and the notes and all that junk. So the right hand goes here, here. And the left hand goes here. And if you're using pedal, the foot's on the pedal. We'll skip the pedal. Okay. 4 counts. 2, 1, 2, ready, go. top of page 24, I'll give you 4 counts. The right hand, you put your little finger on the F, and your 5-3 on FA, and we're ready to go. That's where you go. 1, 2, ready, go. 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, off.